The inception of any sport, regardless of the rules in place, is often a period of discovery and experimentation for its competitors. Robot combat is absolutely no exception. When Robot Wars would have its second US competition in 1995, a lot of the same teams that were around for the first competition came with robots virtually unchanged in design philosophy. What none of them would realise was that a grey, triangular-shaped wedge would dominate any opponent that it went up against and virtually change the entire sport and its trajectory forever. That robot is Greg Munson and Trey Roski's La Machine. I say this with absolutely no hyperbole or exaggeration that La Machine is the most influential robot in the history of robot combat. There is a direct link between La Machine's first competition and the obsession with forks and the ground game in modern robot combat. Built with the philosophy that any weapon is useless if you can't get under your robot, La Machine, originally a middleweight, would be the star of the 1995 Robot Wars competition. More so than actual heavyweight champion, the Master, or runners-up Thor. The crowd became absolutely captivated with the bot, so much so that the crowd insisted that it fought against its bigger counterparts in the heavyweight melee. What would unfold would be told again and again and again by Greg and Trey and would be enshrined in robot combat folklore.
You know, I'll never forget, and Greg will probably never forget, that melee where the crowd is chanting La Machine and Greg's in the audience and he's quit and thought we were done, and Mark Thorpe comes up and says, well, you know, you're going to get totally wasted. You know, your robot's half the weight of everybody else, but if you want to go in, you can. And I said, we're doing it. And then they made the announcement, and Greg's like, he goes, what? He comes running around, and we stuck the robot in, and
okay, let's go.
Ended up winning, and yeah.
La Machine would be every robot in that fight and would be greeted with a La Machine! La Machine chant. Rather unsurprisingly, it would enter next year's competition as a heavyweight, and would do the same in 1997. But by then, the competition had started to catch up. Despite the robot making it to the final on 2 occasions, it would lose both those fights to the same robot, Carlo Bertoncini's Biohazard. But despite their losses, I don't think anyone involved in robot combat would undersell the influence that La Machine had on every asset of robot combat design. Nowadays, we look back and laugh at the fact that a silver wedge on wheels was able to dominate the competition, and the fact that forks and wedgelets have become somewhat of a meme in the community. But one thing still rings true: you need to get under your robot to win. Some of the best robots in the world right now have used or continue to use wedgelets and forks to get the upper hand in fights. I know no other robot that can lay claim to originating that philosophy than La Machine. We pledge to the wedge.
Prepare yourselves.